How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another Trialogue. I am joined by my co-hosts, Ethan Indigo and Ricardo Calvario. Ethan, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell them where they can find you. Tell them what you've been working on.
Well, great to be here. Great to be with you guys, and thanks for everyone in the chat and listening and so forth. Ethan Indigo Smith, easy to find online, and I appreciate communicating. If anyone wants to reach out, please feel free to do so. Uh, Writer, author, philosopher, observer, and again, appreciate you guys.
Ricardo, what you been?
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Ricardo Calvario. You can find me on X, as you can see on the screen. Hi, Flower. Hi, Cody. There's people on the chat already. Oh, hi, Headless.
Hello.
So you can find my material on both my History Myths and Legend account on YouTube, but my current podcasts are The Shaman and the Philosopher and the Round Table. The Round Table is every Friday at 8. Exceptionally, this week will be Saturday because we cannot be on Friday. And check my two books and my materials. So my books are on Amazon, Stardust and The Resonant Earth. And I've been working on so many things, I don't even know where to start, but I'm actively trying to help the team that is going to test new pieces of copper. So we are contacting museums in Europe now, trying to get pieces with provenance and provenience. We've selected 3 or 4 museums in England and 1 in Italy. So let's see.
Well, I found a guy on Instagram that is from Michigan that has these massive pieces of float copper, and I was trying to get him on the show today, but he's in Phoenix, Arizona for some reason. So maybe next week we can talk to him. But geologists who have huge pieces of copper seem really interesting to me.
Well, that's the big difference, because you go to Europe and you have to go underground and dig to find ore or small pieces of rock with small incrustations of copper, and then you have to roast it, and then you have to smelt it and to take the copper out. But in the UP, you don't. You just pick it up out the ground, or it's just like the biggest piece ever found, 28 tons. So these 2 friends bought a mine, a copper mine, abandoned copper mine, thinking that they're going to find something in the mine, right? But they were with their metal detectors on the surface, and all of a sudden they were like, I don't know, 6, 7 paces away from one another. And the machines go, dee, 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 and they say, oh, I found something. Oh, I also found something. So they start taking the dirt off the top, and they were on top of the same piece of copper, 28 tons of it. So, in fact, the conference that I gave my presentation last year, was founded by the people that wanted to preserve that piece of copper, so it didn't end up in electrical wire or something like that. But they never got the money because the guy wanted $250,000 for it. So it ended up being shipped, much more money than that. It ended up being shipped to China to a geology exposition, and in that exposition it was bought by a private buyer, Chinese, that has a museum on minerals, a private museum, and it's been on that museum ever since. They say that the it's the president, right? In China, it's a president. The guy at the time said, "Oh, if you turn this around, it's like the map of China." So it's become a success because they saw the map of China on the piece. So it's been there for decades now.
28 tons.
28 tons. Yeah, it's an enormous piece. I have pictures of it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that is just how massive these pieces of copper really are. I mean, like, you wouldn't have to smelt it. You wouldn't have to do anything. You just pull it out of the ground, put it on a boat, ship it over to Europe, and let them deal with it.
see if I can find it in the AAPS site. I think they have a
So
photograph there.
one of the things I've been interested is
There it
the
is.
concept of, oh, you got it?
Yeah, I'm going to share it. Instead of looking on my files, I went directly to the AAPS. Share screen. Chrome tab. What is it called? It's called like this, yes. Share. It's just that tiny piece. Is it on screen? Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just solid freaking copper.
99.9% pure copper.
Yeah.
So you
Compared
see,
to
they were on with the metal detectors. One was on one piece because they were moving side by side in the direction of the piece, so they both find the same piece, and they were far apart from one another. And this is what they found on the ground. On the ground, right? Just a little bit under a little bit of dirt, like an inch or something.
yeah, that did look like China to me, but what do I know?
Oh yeah, you have to turn it around. Apparently,
The thing that fascinates me is the deposition of it, right? So what would the geological conditions be for something like that to form?
well, the thing that made this and quite unique is the fact that it was created by the it's called the mid rift, I think, in the UP area, and one of the signatures of this copper is that it has mercury in it, which in truth it shouldn't exist because mercury evaporates after 500 centigrade degrees are achieved passed. At 500 it just evaporates, right? So this was created in extreme heat, all of these pieces of copper, because there are many pieces of this of some smaller, some might be bigger because we didn't find them yet, but the chronicles describe walls, like the end of cliffs, like walls of copper before the copper and bronze age. There were walls of copper. And so how is it possible is that this process was so unique that when this riff was bringing and creating this copper in the bowels of the earth, the pressure was so extreme that the mercury couldn't escape.
Mm.
So while it's being evaporated, it's being reabsorbed again because there is nowhere for it to go. So when it cooled, it retained the mercury. So when the team sent the first pieces to one of the best, if not the best, metallurgical lab in the world, that is Luleå in Sweden, and they are experts in copper, they send an email back. Are you trying to joke us? What are you trying to do to us? There's mercury on these samples. And said, yeah, it's quite normal. Because, is it? And so they had to learn this process of geology because they never heard of copper that had mercury in it. How is it possible? So it's one of the signal. The problem is all the copper has been somehow heated up and transformed, and so to find a piece in Europe with the mercury signature would mean that that piece was never changed at all, because even hammering can somehow take part of that mercury out. So, but it's one of the things that make it completely unique. And there's very old other places on Earth with float copper. They say there is a new place in Ukraine, and it might be in some one or two other places, but the quantities are very inferior to what happened here in UP. It's just the geology of it's quite unique. What created all of this sheets and sheets of copper is it's a process that we don't know happened anywhere else on Earth.
Right. And the specifically that region has so many interesting factors. Like all of the Great Lakes didn't exist until after the Ice Age was over. Right. So that was like what was left of the massive sheets of ice that was covering all of Canada is the Great Lakes. So it's a very interesting depository area. Like there's very few glacial erratics around the Great Lakes. Would you think there would be a lot more?
Yeah, but they won't.
considering.
They're too close to the force of the water. They'll take it much further down.
Oh, like, well, you've got the Mississippi River. There should be glacial erratics all up and down the Mississippi River in the northern part of the country. But again, we're not finding these things. Where we find the biggest glacial erratics is over in New England. Tell me how that makes sense. Have you seen the world's largest glacial erratic?
No,
It is
let
massive.
me stop sharing.
Okay. Um,
Stop screen. Yeah.
for people who don't know, tell them what a glacial erratic is, or at least the concept.
Okay, so the concept is when imagine the ice was a mile thick, right? So when it moves, it just cleans the what is the bedrock clean. Everything on top of it is dragged with the ice, and when the ice melts, the force of the water, it takes even the erratic further depending on the strength, right? And then when the ice finally melts, because these pieces are going in, floating in massive amounts of water, when that ice melts, they settle down where the ice melts and they stay there. Ah, yeah, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Imagine the amount of ice necessary to float on water, because the ice has to be floating to move, right? And then the ice melts and it boom, it settles down, and then there's no more moving. That's where it stays.
Right. So this is the Madison Boulder in New Hampshire. You see all those little tiny people there? That is supposed to be moved by a massive glacier, picking that rock up and pushing it several miles.
You could create a cave on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just amazing. So again, the theory of glacial erratics and the actual things that they call glacial erratics are a lot of times very different. But I think one of the reasons why they use all these dolmens that they find up in the northern United States as evidence of glacial erratics is because they don't find very many evidences of glacial erratics up here. Like there's, for instance, the reason why Indiana is flat and all the rest of these Ohio is super flat is because they claim that it was just sheared off by glacial motion, right? And so what you'll find in these areas too is you've got these canyons that are gouged out into regularly normal flat land, right? And it's just a little tiny stream at the bottom, and yet they've got these huge cliff sides on either side. And one of these places was in Indiana. I used to go to this place. They call it Devil's Gorge or Devil's Canyon, and you just like you're coming out of regular flat, everything's a grid pattern Indiana land, and then all of a sudden you follow this road down and it's just this huge gorge and a tiny little stream running through the middle of it. And it's like, how could this tiny little stream carve this huge thing out? But it's because it was connected to the glacial back channels where all of this stuff was melting through. So it had a massive amount of water pushing through there at one point. But it's one of those things. Once you know the glacial geology, then you can kind of start to see it where you're at. But unless you know about this stuff, these things are pretty magical. That's why they call it Devil's Canyon, is because nobody understood what was going on there. They didn't understand the processes that was shaping the earth there.
Well, Apgood might, but I don't know if you ever saw it or talked about it. But I was going to say something. Oh, one of the important things about this copper history is when they are talking about the levels of the water, it didn't went down progressively. It went down and then it went up again, right? And when I say up again, I'm talking about 30 feet in difference. It's huge. I've been in Michigan, in Wisconsin. I've been in the ancient shoreline of Lake Erie. Could be. I can't know the name, right? Uh, this is a Kinawa Peninsula or something like that. I don't know the name of the lake. And I've been on the where the level is now, and I've been on top of the ridge where the ancient level used to be. So ships could come up right up through the rivers into there, right? Big ships and carry. This is all hypothetical, of course, but they could go all the way up into the interior of the United States, carry directly, and then just come back until to the Atlantic, because the levels were that high in this period of 4000 BC. They could do that. By the end, they couldn't do it anymore. But it's not just something that went down and down and down. Now it went down and it went wide up again. It depended on how the ice was melting or reforming again. So it's time to us is it's hard to understand these things when we're talking about process that takes 10,000 years of changes, right? Like the ocean levels and so on. The amount of cities, villages, signs of civilization that are now on ancient coastlines that are under the ocean, it must be staggering, because even today we are grouping. We never lost that kind of mind process that we have to all live near the coastal areas, right? If you go and see the distribution of population, they are all on coastal areas, like more than 60% of it. So if the sea level decided to rise again 100 feet, we've lost 60% of the cities of the world. So minimum, right? And after what, 5,000 years, what we'll find? Nothing, because you don't know it's there. It's so
Symbolically, I think it's very important too, because it's like we always have to be at these places that are liminal spaces, right? It's the transition between one type of geology and another. You've got to be in between so that you can maximize your resource gathering potential, right? So being at the seawater changes and everything. And likewise, I think if you were to apply that to your own state of mind, you have to sort of go through the liminal events and sort of live in that liminal space so that you can be more flexible. It's like mental flexibility. So in a lot of ways, there's something to be said about avoiding rigidity and how we've sort of maximized our coastline potential to avoid rigidity. You can, either harvest from the land, harvest from the sea. You've got to be in the liminal spaces so that you can maximize your potential of getting resources.
but it's to me it's a fascinating coincidence that it wasn't just fauna and flora that used to be much bigger. It's also the rivers and the lakes, right? Because, for instance, the Tagus River, that now is at one point is exactly zero point 0.6 of a mile wider than the Strait of Gibraltar. Uh, at a vast point, it's they call it the sea, but it's nothing like the Great Lakes or anything like that. But it's 0.6 of a mile long, wider than the Strait of Gibraltar at its broader point. But this river, at certain point, and we know by the sediment, and the property where my house is within this area, it was more than 30 kilometers, or 30 kilometers would be 19 miles, 20 miles, I don't know, around that, wide, a river, right? So it would dwarf any gigantic river that we might know today, right? Because you even today you barely can see the other side unless it's very clear weather, right? And it used to be 5, 6, certain places 20 times wider than it is today. It's 30 kilometers wide. It's just unbelievable, and we don't have the ice. While in the Americas you have a mile of ice to melt and see the area of the drumlins and all the erosion that the water caused because of that melting and ice forming again and melting again. And in Portugal, you don't have that. So when I looked to that sediment, where in certain places is 300 feet high, and the river was on top of that, there is 300 feet of sediment, 101 meters tall. near Lisbon, right at the mouth of the river to the Atlantic, right? And there's no ice because we never had glaciation as in the Americas. The ice was much further north beyond Spain. Only the high mountains, like the Spanish Alps, and that makes a border with the French Alps, and the areas of the Mountain of the Star, because I'm translating the name, is Serra da Estrela, on the north of Portugal, was the only places that have glaciers. And we do have some glacial erratics at that point. Nothing compared to what you've shown, of course, much, much, much smaller. But it knowing in listening to Randall Carlson for 5 or 6 years and looking at where I lived, I start thinking, so I don't have ice. How the hell can I have all of this amount of water here? Right? Where is it coming from? Right? Because it's just not natural. And that's how I found that impact 4000 BC, more or less, 32,000, 3600, sorry, 3600 or 3200 BC of the Burkle crater, that they then found that it was not an isolated event. There were at the same time at least two in the Pacific and one in the Atlantic they have not identified, and I believe to be the frying pan structure right off the coast of Portugal, right, at an angle towards the Atlantic, but still backwash the water into the land, right, and the water washed out the middle and south of Portugal and the middle and south of Spain. And when it came back, it dragged everything with it and create all that sediment and that massive wide river that we don't see today. Right? In some areas, you can cross it by foot if you go north enough in Portugal, right? And it's the, I don't know, seventh biggest river in the world, or 12th, something like that, the Tagus, because it starts right at the top of Spain and goes all the way down until it comes to Atlantic in Portugal. So it has 96 dams.
96.
96 dams. Right? In Portugal alone, there are 36 or something like that. And we are a 300 kilometers wide country. So 186 miles wide, which is ridiculous in numerical terms, right? That's not a mountain ridge. It's the whole country. It's 186 miles wide. So it's an impressive structure. But I'm talking about this because you're talking about the land near the ocean. If you go and see maps of Portugal in Google Earth, or a topographic map that shows you the bottom of the ocean, you will see that in front of Portugal there are these massive amounts of material that were dragged where the rivers still are flowing today. And in front of those debris, there is these huge canyons, like in Nazaré, where they do that records of the waves, the 100-feet wave, where the guy made the record of surfing. That is caused by when the water was coming back in, it carved those canyons, and those canyons cannot be carved with the water there. So all of the ocean was projected either in either direction, including into the land, and it was dry. Imagine all the fish dying on the bottom of the ocean with no water. Everything was there's no water, and when the water was coming back, it carved all those canyons and carved that particular one that creates the 100-feet tall waves that they use to surf and break the records. But if you go to the Tagus mouth or the Sado mouth later to the south, you'll find that in front of all of these rivers there are massive canyons carved into the bottom of the ocean, and they cannot be formed. And I had a geologist that answered me and said, "Oh, of course you can have canyons underwater. We don't need to take the water of the ocean to form canyons." Yes, that's true, because there is currents in the water, but you cannot carve canyons that are more than 100 feet deep. You carve canyons that are small, like 2 feet, 3 feet, that you can detect when you are there, but they are small canyons. You cannot carve this amount of material. You are muted, Ethan, so I can't hear you.
I was interrupting you rudely to say that they would be a different shape too, right? That the
Right.
canyons that you
Yes.
pointed out, the oceanic movements would be different.
Why are all the canyons in the same direction and
Yeah.
on the mouths of rivers? They are not on the rest of the
Right.
of the coastal area. And Portugal is all coastal area, right? From the south to the north, we are all coast, right? We have two sides of the country is like a rectangle, and two sides of the rectangle are into the ocean. Right? Only the north goes to Spain, and there it's only like about 80 miles, and you get to the ocean again. And to the east, then you have Spain. That is an enormous country, of course, that goes into the Mediterranean. But it's only in front of the mouths of the rivers. And when I did this study, that people can go and see my video called 4000 BC on my channel, or look for the paper on Academia Edu on the Institute for Natural Philosophy academia.edu page. You'll see that it's not only Portugal. When I go further north, I find that in Spain, in France, in England, in front of those rivers that were affected by this massive tsunami wave, there are canyons in front of the rivers, because the water and went into land and then start coming, dragging everything out. That's I don't know if you want to go into it, but I might have some images showing the level of material that was dragged. Where would that be? That would be in current project, HML, Atlantic Impact.
Isn't it interesting that the bureaucratical systems and individuals and institutions in politics and in any other subject matter among the academics will all refute to acknowledge information, right? So they are literally we don't address that. We don't consider that in our system. And so yeah, well, if you don't consider information in your system, then you're going to have a validity in your process that is blind to that thing. You're blind to the reality of the world thereby. And so this is really an interesting phenomenon, and it's the sophists versus the Socratics once again.
So, although this map is not made to show what I'm trying to say here, just look at the direction of the water.
Sure.
All these areas were areas that are made naked to the bedrock. There's nothing in here. It just cleaned them completely.
And these are the desert areas now.
Yes. Let me show you. So this is the this is maximum glaciation, right? This is
Right.
one of the first things I noticed. There is no ice. So where is all of this water causing all of this erosion?
Hold on,
coming from?
hold on. So let's check out Doggerland in this picture real quick.
Doggerland is this here.
Well, no, it's because it goes all the way up here. That's all Norway and stuff. But Doggerland.
Where am I? Sorry. Oh, this is England. It's here.
There
It's
you
here.
go, yeah.
Green area below it, yeah.
Right. That's
This is England.
it.
This is Doggerland here, right here.
It was covered up completely by glaciation, and that's so what formed first was this river, that rift between the two right here.
Yeah.
So at the tip right there of that top Norway sort of thing and England, there was a massive gorge that was put between there, and so from that gorge over to Ireland was all dry land.
Yes.
So that's interesting. They said that that was completely covered by glaciation at one point. So
Yes. Yeah. And this massive lake.
right. Well, that's what started the gorge.
Yeah.
Right. It started flowing up north, kind of like the Nile.
This is the area of impact, an area that affected the world. Just this impact, the Burkle crater. So as you can see, these points where so you have hot water from the sky are the stars. You see biblical descriptions. boiling water falling from the sky. You have,
Yikes.
yeah, resin from the sky. Where is that? In
Wow.
here.
So what that would indicate that there was part of it is exploding in the atmosphere and then falling down as resin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Nightmare. Holy
So
cow.
look now, location of flood myths. So I have a collection of about 470 flood myths around the world. Not all of them are the same event, of course, but notice this impact, right? Notice where the flood myths are. You see this coast of this coast here. The impact was here. There are chevrons that are produced by tsunamis in this area of Australia. This is how deep the water came in.
Yikes. And there's no mountains to the west of that.
No, this is a harbor that they found in after Cadiz, the Donana Park. It was a hub of the. So this is the impacts. This is from an academic paper. I'm not inventing any. I'm not making this up. So this is the Burkle crater and its effect, right? This is the strike two. If you remember the other map, this is filled with flood myths in this area. So this is strike two. And they say that this here is strike three, although they already identified another impact here.
Isn't it convenient that all of these strikes are happening in the water?
Yeah, very convenient. So this is my addition with the area of influence. This is where I think it fell, but I think I have images of that. This is the Burkle crater right here.
Now, if we're talking about an impact on the land versus an impact on the water, totally different destruction capabilities there. Ooh,
You see, this is what I consider to be the impact. It's the frying pan structure. So, but it came on this direction.
Right.
So you
scraped everything.
Yeah, and the water that was sent back, because there's always water sent back, created. Let me see if I have the images here.
Well, you showed it in that other one, that big gorge in Spain that just sort of empties right out into the Atlantic.
Oh yeah. Just let me move forward.
Yeah, there we go.
So this is structure. So now look at the size. This is that produces the 100 feet waves.
Right.
So the water comes here and is pushed up.
Wow.
So
cool.
So all of this material that you see here was dragged from the land.
It's not just pushed up, but as the wave is rolling towards the land, right, it's being consolidated and being, channeled.
Concentrated,
Yeah, one solid wave.
Look at that. It just concentrates in here. It continues to push it up, push it up, push it up.
Amazing.
So if you notice these canyons, this is a river. This is the Tagus. This is the other river that I was talking about. And you see the amount of material, all of this material here was dragged from land. All of this.
Yeah, that shelf right there.
Yeah. All of this was dragged by land. Now I have an image somewhere.
Now, was this what formed the Mediterranean, these impacts? Because I know like a million years ago or something, that's when it was just like a lake or a river inside of there. And then once it opened up Gibraltar, it was like a massive inflow.
So there are some people that say, we know that this was closed several times in the past, right?
Will be again in the future, probably.
Sure. And we know that all of these marks here and this side show that this was empty when the water started flowing in. So this is the marks of the last break of this space, right? Created all this drag of material down. This is the Burkle crater. This is a riff that they say it caused. You see the ripples on the land. So we can detect the direction of the impact. That's why I'm putting the same direction on the other one. So Doggerland. You're talking about Doggerland. Here is Doggerland.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, that's a perfect example. That channel right there. This is where that right there in that basin, that would be like the lake, and then you've got this outflow right here that goes into, at the north part of it. You've got that outflow that then flows up into the water. Yeah. I find Doggerland interesting because we know that people were around back then. We've got evidence of a 400,000-year-old fireplace in England. 400,000.
Yeah.
So that's well into Doggerland. Like there were people all over Doggerland. So we're not even thinking about collecting samples from the bottom of the water right now to show the human settlements in Doggerland, but that they would be collected around the coast again. So if you just go around the coast of Doggerland, you would find evidence of civilizations 400,000 years old.
And there's areas that the water is little more the depth is little more than a man's height. So, and they found still on these places like woods on that would be a house. They found tools. So it's filled with that stuff. Doggerland was literally a paradise.
Right.
That area there. This is more controversial because I'm assuming from what I told you before of the actual Burkle crater impact, this is an area that was affected by heavy rain.
What could help your theory is having the what are they called? The where you've got the little lines showing elevation, because that lake is much higher than Gulbekki Tepe, right?
Much higher, but really much higher, right? Much higher. But what I consider is, in terms of, and this map is not the best to see geology, but all of these show signs of water coming down. You see those lines? So I think that this lake overflowed and it created a slow-moving mass of debris coming down.
Flood.
Yeah. To this area and creating these plains and bearing all of this valley here. However, the times and dates of the materials found do not confirm my idea. It shows that it was buried much earlier than 4000 BC. So, but I still think it suffered that. Either it was buried by this or by humans. I still think it's... So this is the map that I was talking about. Right. So in here you can see exactly the effects of the water.
Looks like a claw scraping at the land.
Yeah. It took all of this out and push it. That's where you see those additional masses.
The shelf.
It's in front of these areas. And you can see that the same happened on this side because the water from the Burkle crater crosses above the Red Sea and into the Mediterranean, at the same time as it being pushed by this side into the Mediterranean too, causing huge catastrophe on that area. This is India, okay, and this area here is where this temple here has still documentation of when this happened around 4000 BC. The water rose through this channel and stopped at the bottom stair of the temple. It's one of the places there is a written record of this catastrophe.
Now, what's interesting to me is the impact in terms of spiritual impact, right? So I think about how these different disasters have affected the Akashic record and created sort of like a trauma memory. So all of these holy sites and sacred places where they have all these stories and stuff preserved, like what if they're preserving sort of an ancestral memory, a universal unconsciousness? So you've got people sort of repeating the cycles of these traumatic events in different ways that are reflective of these disasters, right? So a lot of people don't think about the spiritual outflow of these disasters in terms of what it would do to the consciousness in the area. And once you're moving into those areas, you're having dreams about these catastrophes, you're having visions of these things. It's all sort of being absorbed into our subconscious minds.
So in here, it's not recognized as such. It could be just a hill, but I'm on the northern edge of what this massive flood was. I'm on top of the structure that I think it might be a drumlin because they are all aligned, going uh, slightly northeast, and this is the plains. It's everything is flat until you can't see it anymore. You have to go the 30 kilometers in this direction to finally find the same thing on where I'm standing on, and is all sand. Everything is sand, like beach sand. It's been worked a lot by farmers, but it's all sand. Let me see if I have one last image.
Well, that's the way it is here too. I mean, it's all sand here. Like once you go down to a certain level, it's all sand. All the cliffs around here are all sandstone. And again, this is a big farming area, so they've got to build up the soil on top of the sand.
I think if I have any more, if I started at the first image, let me just go back all the way and see if I went through it all.
Well, what's interesting about this these impacts, this Burkle crater,
Yeah,
is
I
that
went
part
through it
of
all.
the Younger Dryas?
No. It to me it's, and to several other people that looked into this. Stop sharing. To me, this is the same comet. So the Taurid meteor stream. So it was a huge. This is my idea. It was a huge comet. It came closer to the sun. The sun reacted to it, which we've seen many times, sent a massive burst into the comet. It broke the comet, and it glanced the Earth. When I think it's meltwater pulse 1 is caused by this glance of surface mass ejection of the sun glancing the top of the planet and producing the first melt, and then comes the fragments of the comet, and a few of them fell on Earth, and then they continue the circle, and we know that they came back again in 9600, 7200, 400, for 42 or to 3200, again in 1600, something like that, all BC. So this is all pieces of the comet going round in their orbit and eventually falling on Earth. I correlate this to the fact that if you go to the chronicles of astronomers, you see the Taurid meteor stream. It was a spectacle to be seen like 600 years ago. It's like 10,000 sightings per hour, and now you are lucky to see 15 because it's being cleaned by the passage of the Earth and by it's going round. It's being cleaned, and so now there is, on that specific thing, there is not much to threaten us. They don't see any object there that can actually threaten. It's just fragments right now. But I think this is all the same comet that was destroyed, caused Younger Dryas, and caused all these following impacts in the cycles that are regular. They are all between 2 and 3,000 years between one another. And the last one is in the 14 400, the year around the year 400 in England, right? That includes the history of Madoc, that is part of the Arthur's legend. And he was at sea when the impact, this is what the chronicles say, he was at sea when the impact happened in England. And the impact pushed them into the middle of the ocean, and they eventually end up in the Americas. Right? And so they make a recognition of the land, and they return. They tell the history of the land that they found, and they do a second expedition when they actually create a Welsh community in the United States. Right. That's why, for instance, near Jason, there is the Welsh cave where this Arthur the second, or I don't have the story correct. I don't know if I think it's Arthur the second was buried. Buried now. It was mummified inside that cave before it was again transported back to England. And all of this happens in more than one chronicle, so it's been documented. It's just not accepted because it's before Columbus. So we can't have anything before Columbus unless it is this tiny, insignificant Viking group that landed in Newfoundland and just an accident. So
with a priest, right?
With a
So they
priest.
had a priest with them. So the priest reported back to the Vatican. So they knew about England about 400 years before.
Oh, they knew. I told you about Peter de Roo. If people go and look at Peter de Roo was sent to do an investigation about some reports on the Vatican, and he had access to the Eden Library that not all everybody has because he's on this group, right? And when he's looking for these records, you find the history of these Portuguese or Spanish bishops, the 3 bishops and 2 monks or whatever, that was fleeing one of the Muslim interventions in before the year 1000, and they put themselves on a boat that they hired and took them to the Americas.
Right.
And they describe everything that they found there. What were the cultures, the people, that there were a Welsh community there. There were white men, and there were indigenous peoples. And they return. They deliver all this material that is hidden down in the Vatican to be found by Peter de Roo in the 17th century or something. In his research, and he put it all in a book. So it's a 2-volume book, by the way. If anyone is interested, I have the 2 volumes. I can send the PDFs. They're not easy to get. So
Well, I had a short video that I wanted to share with you guys. So do you guys know about the Concorde, the jet that was super that used to be in service?
that
It's
were
really
both sabotage in order to finish their career. We
right.
can go into the reasons. They're very simple.
Yeah, but there was an incident in the 1970s where the Concorde was actually sent to study a solar eclipse, like the longest solar eclipse. They had to keep it in the air directly under the solar eclipse with all of these instruments facing up at the sun. And it's one of these things where it's like they retrofit an entire plane for the purpose of studying the sun. And now we don't even have the Concorde anymore. So it's like we're Apex
Or the SR-71. We don't have either of them.
right. So we're apexing our technology in the 1970s, and now we're going down in terms of what we can do with flight and all the rest of this stuff. So, I just wanted to show it to you guys. Let's see here. Let's get this flowing here.
This is Concorde, flying over Africa on a flight like no other. The sun, which was directly above Concorde, just went completely dark in what was to become the most unique solar eclipse ever witnessed. Total solar eclipses are rare and typically only last for a few minutes. But in 1973, scientists were able to cheat and experience 74 minutes in the moon's shadow by flying in the only vehicle capable of chasing an eclipse. This was an incredible mission that required pinpoint accuracy and timing to intercept the moon's shadow as it traveled at over 2,000 kilometers per hour across the Earth's surface. We modeled the entire thing to show you what this incredible mission looked like and how a small team of scientists managed to pull it off. In 1972, French astrophysicist Pierre Léna began preparing for the upcoming eclipse. This was to be one of the longest in history, with a duration of over 7 minutes. An eclipse this long wouldn't happen for another 200 years, so he was eager to make the most of it. He was particularly interested in observing the sun's corona, the area of hot gas where the temperatures shoot from 5,000 degrees to over 1 million degrees. The corona is usually invisible from Earth, but during an eclipse, the sun disappears and the corona lights up. But even during an eclipse, studying the corona is difficult since clouds and the Earth's atmosphere get in the way. And so for the 1973 eclipse, Pierre wanted to step things up a notch. And so Pierre asked legendary Concorde test pilot André Turcat if he could use Concorde to chase down the eclipse and fill the plane with science equipment. Aerospatiale, the French
How are we
side of
going
Concorde,
backward?
were excited about the idea and let him use prototype 001 for the flight, with Turcat piloting the aircraft. Although there were faster planes around, none of them could match the endurance or cabin space of Concorde. Pierre and Turcat got to work coming up with a flight plan that would maximize their time in the moon's shadow. Before we look at how the flight worked, we need to understand the basic principles of solar eclipses. An eclipse happens when the moon passes in front of our view of the sun, blocking out its light and casting a large shadow over Earth. Most parts of the shadow will only experience a partial eclipse, but at the very center of the shadow is a much smaller area where the sun is fully blocked. This is where the total eclipse happens. As the moon moves, the shadow also moves across the Earth's surface, meaning that any point along the path will only experience a few minutes of complete darkness. For the 1973 eclipse, the shadow was set to begin at the edge of South America and work its way over to Africa, where the totality would be at its fullest. It would be moving over the ground at around 2,200 kilometers per hour, slightly faster than Concorde's top speed. Pierre and his team had to figure out how to stay in the moon's shadow for as long as possible before it eventually overtook them. But during the planning stages, word got out about the mission thanks to a data breach, something that wouldn't have happened if they'd used Incogni. Just kidding, that didn't happen. But did you know that data brokers buy and sell our own personal data to marketing agencies who add you to a list, usually so they can send you pointless emails? The problem is that the information on their databases can quite easily be leaked or stolen by criminals. Incogni reaches out to these marketing agencies on young as possible. Concorde had to follow a very precise flight plan. The best chance for achieving this was over Africa, but this didn't give the team a whole lot of options for airports. Most of the runways in Africa were too short for Concorde, and the hot conditions meant that Concorde would have to carry less fuel during takeoff. They eventually settled on the island of Gran Canaria, which had a cooler climate and a great runway. The plan was to take off, fly south, and intercept the moon's shadow at a specific point over Mauritania, where it would turn and follow the shadow across the Sahara.
Mauritania, right where the eye of the Sahara is. Boom. There are so many symbolic elements to this. It's just insane.
Desert. But the path of the shadow wasn't straight, and instead followed a large curve. This would make science observations from inside Concorde very difficult if it had to constantly make turns. And so Pierre and his team came up with a straight line path that would touch the northern edge of the shadow, cut across to its southern edge, and end at its northern edge. This would give them up to 80 minutes in the shadow without having to make a single turn. Since the shadow would be traveling a little bit faster than Concorde, it would eventually outrun it. And so the team had to meet the shadow at a precise point on the shadow's leading edge. If they were to arrive more than 15 seconds late or a kilometer off, they would fall out of the shadow much sooner, and their time in totality would be drastically reduced. But arriving at the intercept point so precisely, with all the variables of weather, would be a huge challenge. Luckily, André Turcat was one of the best pilots around, and he knew Concorde better than anyone. With a solid flight plan, Pierre recruited 4 other teams of scientists that would each carry out experiments on board Concorde. Since Concorde was going to fly over the equator, the eclipse would be directly above the aircraft. And so holes were cut into the roof of Concorde, and special windows were installed to give the scientists a clear view of the eclipse. All of the seats were removed from the cabin, and the electrical supply was modified to provide power to the science instruments. After weeks of modifications, the fastest science observatory in the world was ready to make history.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys,
On the 30th of June, at precisely 10:08 in the morning, Concorde began rolling down runway 21. Turcat had decided to take off 20 seconds early, giving him time to correct for any headwinds that might slow Concorde down. This turned out to be a wise choice, since the weather that morning was more turbulent, and they ended up losing 8 seconds during the climb up to altitude. With 12 seconds of time still to lose before reaching the intercept point, Turcat started deploying small air brakes to carefully bleed off some speed. This quickly brought them closer to the correct arrival time. But the winds continued to be unpredictable, and Concorde slowed down too much, falling 4 seconds behind the scheduled arrival time with just a few minutes to go. In order to make up for this, Turcotte briefly pushed the engines past their maximum operating speed of Mach 2.2, and Concorde arrived at the intercept point just 1 second late and only a kilometer off course. At the exact same time, the sun fully disappeared behind the moon, and Concorde was now in complete darkness. Despite it being midday, the stars became visible, and the scientists could see the sun's corona through their windows. Concorde was now racing against time and the moon itself, and so the scientists got to work. Pierre and his team had developed a telescope that could measure the infrared light coming from the sun's corona. During the 74 minutes in the moon's shadow, they made measurements that furthered our understanding of the zodiac light, the layer of dust in our solar system that gets lit up by the sun.
Zodiac light. Does that sound like plasma to you guys? Right? So the plasma is lit up by the corona. Again, plasma is being charged by plasma here.
Yeah, it's
The
energized.
team from
by
the
its
US
light
discovered
emitting.
that the sun's corona has acoustic waves, which cause it to pulse every 5 minutes.
What? The sun is pulsing every 5 minutes? Who told you
Yes.
that in school?
No one.
That's insane to me. So we're talking about how that applies to, let's say, we're given these signs at birth and the sun is pulsing every 5 minutes. What are the astrological implications of that? What are we doing with that? Maybe there's something having to do with ensouling, soul, like the soul sun, having to do with this pulse every 5 minutes.
Concorde flew perfectly for 74 minutes before it left the moon's shadow and landed in Chad. For the scientists and pilots on board, they got to witness one of the most beautiful spectacles from the most unique vantage point. This remains the longest eclipse experienced by humans, a record that will most likely remain for centuries. And now for the Primal Space giveaway. The winner of the previous giveaway.
All right. So what did you guys think of that video?
I think it's absolutely amazing what you brought us today. I didn't know about this. So my first eclipse was the one after this one in the 80s. And I was lucky enough to be a total eclipse over Portugal. And I remember seeing it with photographic film. And so we could look directly at the sun without having the proper glasses. We are using photographic film, blank photographic film to see the corona with the naked eye. But it's to your point, and I know this is not where you're taking the conversation, but to your point, it is a civilization decline in evolution, because they finished this plane because airline companies didn't want to go faster. They wanted to go slower, right? In fact, our planes now are going slower than normal planes were going 30 years ago. So because they want to save fuel and save the planet. But you at this time you could go from Paris to New York. I can't remember, but it was 4 hours or something like that. Just and now it takes
New York in 4 hours.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, like, these were the height of like our engineering masterpieces, and what do we have now? Planes that can't even stay in the sky.
I took 8 hours to fly from Portugal to Toronto. So
it's insane how far backwards we've gone, just because the idea is to maximize profits instead of maximizing potential.
sure, people were getting up, dressing, taking the Concorde, have lunch in New York, right? And get back in time to have dinner back at Paris at home again, right? So you can't do that now. So, and I think it's a pity that we didn't
It is.
pursue that. And I
It
know that
totally
there are many projects to revive this type of concept of very supersonic fast tourist plane flights. The problem is they never leave the paper. They don't even reach the prototype, right? Because there's
Who
no
would
interest.
invest in that? Who would invest in that? We've got nothing but hedge funds trying to maximize profit from all of these companies, and they end up just murdering the industries that they're investing in.
But in the other hand, we are creating capsules to make space tourism. The
Supposedly,
Concorde wasn't safe, but we can put people on top of thousands of liters of explosive material and then light a fuse under it and let it explode slowly so that it can go into space. Sometimes it doesn't explode slowly and it makes a big boom. But
well, remember, guys, the Concorde was ecologically unsafe. So now we've got to blast people off under millions of pounds of fuel.
fuel, yes.
Well, that technically would be a way to travel if they could land it somewhere else, right? Just get up into the upper atmosphere, wait a couple minutes, and then you're across
To
the
me,
ocean.
I know it's highly controversial, but I've been
I mean,
defending
not that I would
this.
want to do either. I don't want to be either of those.
To me, this tourism space projects only came to be because these people want to know how to be transported into space and stay there for a week until the dust settles down and then come back down and share the profits of an empty land because everybody's dead. Right?
Well, but who can you profit with? You can't make any money when everyone's dead.
Profit in terms of you're alive and you have a whole world to populate and manage in your own dynasty, right?
Yeah,
Because
I'm sure
if you
people
go back
think
in
that.
time, what you find? You find these dynasties that then were dissolved into governments and then were dissolved into parties and so on, right? That's why you have the gods were ruling us. Then you have the sons of gods ruling us. Then you have the representative of the gods ruling us. And then you have this political system that supposedly works for the people, right? It's this decline that shows the same decline in technology. It's the same thing. Although we now are using this have this ability to communicate even we are far from one another, but it's everything depending on the same technology. It's all of this silica that's highly depending on electricity on its own. So all our supremacy in terms of technology is dependent on one single element that we can lose just by the sun deciding I stretched too much this morning and sends a flare into Earth and fries all the satellites and fries all the condensers and all the transformers, and there's no more electricity. Cars don't work, fuel pumps don't work, right? In 1 week, there is no food on the supermarkets. And then what you do, there's no water on your tap because even the water comes through electricity. There's no water.
In the 60s, I believe, they said "Eat the rich," right? It became like a slogan for protesters, right? But it turns out in the Epstein files, they were saying, "Let's get rid of the poor. Let's eat the poor." So, something that I was going to bring up today is an esoteric idea that I brought up before from Mohism, M-O-H or M-O in Chinese, about the pursuit of impartiality was a big part of Mohism. And I think I'm still seeing partisanship in what are being released in the Epstein files. To me, it's proof of nonpartisanship operations amongst what would appear to be partisan nations, partisan corporations, so on and so forth. They are not acting partisan amongst themselves, right? And you could say a lot of people have the us and them mentality according to right or left, red or blue, and so on and so forth. And we have the national right and left, or liberal and conservative, and you have the international right and left and liberal and conservative. Sometimes they're a little bit different, but people try to have the us and them ideas. Well, one that's valid is the institutions and the individuals. And in these Epstein files, we're seeing the institutionalized individuals acting as virtually above the law. And I think the undeniable proof of them all being sadists from Bill Clinton to Trump and beyond is evident, right? There's some sadistic and selfish things going on, if not outright evil, and we should all be up in arms about it. But I think we should not fall into the partisan nature of it.
Isn't it all smoke screens?
Well, I'm in my first book, I wrote The Complete Patriot's Guide. And fact number 1 in the guide is you don't have all the facts. Neither do I. We don't have all the facts. So I think it's important to consider that, Ricardo, that there's
my point is why are you looking at Epstein and whoever is implied in the letters and so on and so forth?
Well, the only reason we're seeing it is because the lawmakers got together and forced it out there.
Sure, but isn't it all part of the same system?
Right.
Well,
we've only got the 3 million, and there's another 3 million that haven't been released. And so originally there were 6 million files. I pulled this up. If you guys haven't seen this yet, this is Gmail. What they did is they cloned all of Jeffrey Epstein's emails into a fake Gmail server. So we can do live searches right now through Jeffrey Epstein's released emails. If you guys want to look at that, I was going to do a search for a Concorde, see if there's anything about the fucking supersonic jet.
Because Headless, can you look? And I had this discussion here a few days ago. Can you look for how many children are actually missing now on the United States alone?
Well, I know that. So here's the problem. They say that 300,000 children a year go missing.
Yeah, 90% of them reappear and they are false alarms. But still.
Right. That's still a huge number that's left, right?
Where are? That's the question that was
being.
Where are all these children? Isn't that more important than Epstein files?
Check out. No, here's where it's diabolical as it could possibly be. Epstein paid for one of his girlfriends, not Ghislaine, but the other main girlfriend, of which he left $50 million in his will to, paid her to go to Columbia University to become what? A dentist. Why is dentistry so important, as we've seen in these pictures of the dentist
Genetics?
Chair? Possibly, but I'm thinking about more crime. Teeth are the number one traceable to identity, and also dentists, as it turns out, I've only learned this in observing the horrors of this. Dentists are obligated to report sexual abuse, which they can see by damage to the oral palate, right? And so dentists, having your own private dentist, if you're a constant abuser and trafficker, is a priority. So much so, apparently, that he educated this woman to go to Columbia, paid for her to go to Columbia, and gave her all this.
Yeah, but think of the implications you are saying. What you're saying is that someone had enough influence to send a person to a university where she would be given a position.
That's small time compared to the influence that he was on. He was involved.
No, but that means everybody's on the same boat.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Including Columbia.
No, not necessarily Columbia as a whole. I don't think so.
But at least someone that could place her as a dentist.
What guarantees Columbia was involved in getting her in there? I don't think that's necessarily true. She might have been a good student, just had the money. She might have got in there.
Okay, but are you planning on the possibility that she might become the dentist of the university? You don't know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he endorsed her to become a dentist, is what the file suggests. Yeah.
Alert! Call dentist. Call dentist.
Again, I'm telling you, there's a private dentist office on the island.
Yeah.
And I'm also telling you the fact that dentists have to report abuse that they can see to the palate of young people, right? And also, very well that dentists or teeth
Identification of bodies.
identification of people. These are not, extraordinary things, extraordinary facts of the deduction. I'm not saying the deduction is a fact. I'm saying that all these are facts relative to a horrible possible deduction. So yeah, there's so much in this, and we know, Ricardo, too, from looking.
Here's a good question.
Real quick, that the nonpartisan observation of this is super important because, for example, he was working with Putin and other Russian powerful people. It suggested that he was Putin's financial advisor, as well as all kinds of diabolical people in the United States. There's a huge polarization. He was also working with Israel. He was also working with a polarization of Israel, or contrast of, anyway, Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries, right? So this guy, a bunch of corporates, and sorry, it's important.
I think I found a perfect example.
They're all in there.
Why is the victim's name here blanked out when it's 20K to dentist for what? What is this? What are we doing?
To the dentist for so-and-so. And again, dentists, that shit is expensive as hell. But like, wait, wouldn't it be $1,820 or $19,820? Pay the dentist, rather pay the dentist whatever they ask for, not send 20 G's to homeboy.
Let's look what
multiple jobs. It was multiple jobs.
Let's look at what he was responding to. Clifford Williams, DDM. The information contained in this communication is confidential and may be attorney-client privilege, and may constitute inside information and is intended only for the use of addressee. It is property of JE. Unauthorized disclosure or copying of this communication or any part thereof is strictly prohibited. Maybe unlawful.
Standard warning though on things like
that. It could be, but again, like immediately afterwards, they're redacting the name of the victim. So is he taking care of a victim that has dental problems? I don't think so.
It could very well be. Like we don't know necessarily to not jump to conclusions, but that is odd. 20 G's. Not that dentists can't cost.
It's a very small name.
Yeah. So it's probably a first name.
It's probably 4 letters from the size of it.
Yeah. So what the hell are they doing where, again, there's a lot of dentist emails here. A lot of dentist emails. Well, I mean, who knows? Jeffrey Epstein might have had a really bad dental problem that we don't know about. That's
apparently he had gonorrhea and herpes.
Yeah.
And who knows what all else. So he may very well have killed himself. But again, I shared this with you guys earlier. There's pictures of him with a barbed wire type of tattoo on, or what, maybe it's the, it reminds me of the horns, the thorns of Christ. We had this, if you remember the name of that offhand, but it's on his arm, and another picture where he's, just post what happened in his cell. They don't have that tattoo there. This is strange.
It's just so weird. This looks like a copy of that last email, only he's misspelled the name of the person there. We could probably look at our keyboards and figure out what the name is. But it says, Rich, send 20K to the dentist for Kithy. Probably a misspelled thing. Forwarded. I am speechless. XL. Why are you speechless?
I don't get that. That's a weird response.
Like that. Now, again, this looks like a copy of that other email, only they didn't redact it because he misspelled the name. Now, if you look next to the K, what could that be? Right?
No, the other thing, have you guys seen, like, there's all the code words, and we kind of all got hip to that game during Comet Pizza, right? But in this, they're suggesting there's other code words about beef jerky in particular that just sounds super sketchy.
Mhm.
Have you looked into that, Headless?
I have. I've looked into the pizza stuff, but there's a lot of code stuff in here.
No, the beef jerky particularly.
I can look it up. Let's check it out. Beef jerky.
Apparently, that's like they're talking about make sure you refrigerate the beef jerky to make sure it stays fresh, and like, is it even spelled with a Y or a E? Okay, I guess it's Y.
Jeffrey asked that you make some beef jerky for him, please. Please confirm. Thank you.
Who's that person?
Okay. That is Karyana Shuliak. And there's just Karina Shuliak over and over again. Would it be possible for you to make another batch of beef jerky for JE, please? He's running out. Again, this looks like an assistant or somebody because he had lots of women working around him. Hi. Jeffrey asked that you make some beef jerky for him, please. Confirm. You got it.
What the fuck? What? Even if this is what? I don't understand any of this. Like, this would be the most random thing that a person could want you to make. Who makes beef jerky? Like, are you gonna dry out some beef from down the block? Like, this is in New York.
Obviously,
like,
this is something, but is it drugs? And what are those drugs for, and to whom?
Absolutely.
Well, this could explain the dentistry.
There's other
lots of
other messages along the lines of the beef jerky is great. Thank you. We've been eating way more beef jerky than we thought. We need more. It could very well be drugs, but it's definitely code for something.
Well, it's the running out, because even if you are talking in code,
right? BJ's.
Yeah. BJ's. If when you say I'm running out.
Right, that's interesting. It is BJ.
Yeah.
But they're talking about measurements in many of them.
It needs to be in a cold, insulated bag, right? Why does it need to be a cold, insulated bag? Beef jerky is by nature.
What? No,
do you, by nature. Do you remember the first episode of what's the name of the guy that played Neo? Has these movies where he's an assassin that retired and they kill his dog and steal his car. What's the name of it?
I can't remember. I'm super bad with names like this, but I might have seen it. But go on. What's your?
Okay, someone in the chat if can remember the name of the movies, because I've seen them all. They're not bad. They're good movies. They are entertaining. So in this movie, when he has all of these bodies inside his house, he makes a call.
John Wick. Someone says
John Wick. Thank you. He's making a call and says, "I want to make a dinner reservation for 6." And they come up to the house as a cleaning service, and they clean the 6 bodies that he has in the house.
Right. Oh, yeah. See,
it's a dinner reservation. I want to make a dinner reservation. So who knows what beef jerky can
I agree. It's obvious that there is code being presented here and used. To what it is, I can't be sure. So again, it's like, fact is that chick went to Columbia Dentistry, right, to become a dentist for Jeffrey Epstein. Which is weird. Why she did that?
She was going to become a dentist, not to be a dentist of the university. She was just taking the course there. Now I understanding differently. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I was saying Columbia was involved, because he was putting a person there and giving him a job.
Columbia is an Ivy League university. It's one of the most expensive. I don't know about quality anymore, but it's one of the most expensive schools, right? So that was my main point, and even bringing Columbia up, that she went to one of the prestigious schools to become a dentist and then work at Jeffrey's Island.
This is one that's unredacted. It says, to Francis Derby, hi, Francis. Jeffrey Epstein has asked me to email you and ask you whether or not you would be able to teach me to make the beef jerky. So we could ask this Francis Derby person, unless they get Epstein. about what the hell this fucking beef jerky is.
Well, if you
We
if you
we
are
could ask
dealing
them if we had, honest actors at all.
if you are dealing with what we presume he was doing there, then I would assume that this would be what he would give the victim uh, in order to do whatever he and whoever is with him would do to the victim, right?
I would share that the only reason I know this is because of the Epstein Reddit, which has an amalgamation of all kinds of great researchers and presenters of stuff like this that have taken probably a lot of time and energy into researching this and putting it on this simple little website on Reddit. Epstein is the one single word.
All right, so let's read through this one. Ready? Francis has time to come tomorrow to show me how to make it. Jerky class, anyone? He will also bring you a taste of his new jerky recipe from the restaurant and sends a warm hello. He is working at a restaurant called Cannibal and cooks, wait for it, beef jerky and steak. He has 3 p.m. tomorrow. So you don't need to put beef jerky on ice, right? But you would if you worked at a place called Cannibal and it's a code for something else.
Is it a coincidence that I'm seeing clips on my feed of this probably famous 20-something-year-old girl saying that I would eat human meat if it was properly prepared and served in a restaurant? I would eat it. Is it terrible? You think it's terrible? So
I saw one reporter say this. It might have been on the BBC or something like that, but kind of a mainstream reporter, I think, and he was kind of left a little bit kind of like puzzled as to what to say. She goes, "Look, anyone is in the Epstein files." And he's like, "What do you mean?" "Well, are you in them?" She's like, "Yes, I'm in them. I was a reporter, and so he talked about me." And so there's, I mean, that's kind of perverted way to look at it, obviously, but there's probably, Tony Hawk was another guy that was implicated at first in the Epstein files. Turns out his photographer, a photographer of his for his wedding, has Mark Epstein, which is this diabolical Epstein's brother, right? And so he got misconstrued. According to the stories I've seen, I don't know any of this, how crazy it is, but I don't think Tony Hawk was affiliated with these guys, right? It turns out like they're all what's the 4chan relationship too? Have you seen that? This is hyper important. 4chan is the website to which the Q stuff could be ultimately traced back to different threads or whatever they're called on 4chan. And turns out Epstein was rolling with the owner of 4chan as much as he was rolling with anyone else, and had this guy over to his island. And Epstein may have been putting this out to kind of distract from his own thing, that people have hypothesized because of that relationship.
Headless, can you look into any AI that you use? What are the benefits, or what would be, because it will block you, what would be the benefits of eating young human flesh?
Oh, yikes.
Darlene says Epstein is Q and Satoshi, the founder of Bitcoin, right? And a lot of these things point to his at least super powerful influence in the digital coin and blockchain and so forth. And DARPA, even he was meeting with like hyper powerful people about DARPA, and it's as Stitches says, it spooks. They're all spooks.
Well, I don't know if he has time to do all this stuff. So, I mean, I think he might be associated with these people and he might be influencing them in some way. But again, he's He's too busy making these drop-offs of the beef jerky. You know what I'm saying?
I know, right?
That
Yeah,
needs one ice.
that
One
is
ice.
something I've thought about. Like, how the fuck do you manage all these people? Like, I didn't put it in terms like you did, which is hilarious. But it's like, yeah, yo, the other one too was cottage cheese. It apparently is another term, food related, and cream cheese maybe it was actually cream cheese.
I'm going to look up, is there any way, why would you ever put beef jerky on ice?
No, there's no reason in the world. There's no reason.
It's
Not
to
even if you're,
tenderize it.
not even if you're on an island in the middle of the Caribbean, do you need to refrigerate beef jerky?
Oh, it extends the shelf life. But why would you need to do that if you're just
Can
eating?
ask
So
for more
I'm
on an
so
email.
hungry for it right then. Yeah,
Well,
it
he's
doesn't.
on an island far away from people, so he needs to conserve what he gets, right?
I mean, there is, yeah. I mean,
No, he's only talking about his New York properties when he's talking about beef jerky. So
right.
he's right. So he's going to this restaurant called Cannibal to get beef jerky, and it has to be put on bags of ice. One bag.
I mean, it's
Have you
very
looked for the
possible.
restaurant named Cannibal so you can look at the menu?
Yeah, let me look up Cannibal Restaurant in New York City if such a place exists. Yeah. Yikes. The Cannibal Beer and Butcher, a formula meat-focused restaurant in NYC's Nomad District, north of Madison, maybe. I'm not sure what that stands for, but no, not north of Madison. Okay, was known for dishes like sow's pig's head, bone marrow, la la la. Could have very well been a restaurant, but
That's
still super confusing on these messages.
Maybe I don't know. There's a lot of random sort of things,
Do
but
it.
it's funny that he's
Do a
You
cream
guys see
cheese.
more search ideas? Cream cheese, okay. Cream cheese baby. There are millions of babies. Very
Oh, yeah.
little good vegetable cream cheese. You want cream cheese tomorrow? I would go look for it now. Any good bagel places has it. What? Okay.
Well, you can't go to a good bagel place and say, "Oh, I just want your cream cheese. Can I take some, please?"
They
Like,
will
Give
sell
me-
you pint of cream cheese.
They will? Okay. Different culture then.
It's
Yeah,
funny
and
how
New York-
cream cheese and baby are on the same level, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if cream cheese and baby are on the same level. It's okay. There's still enough time today. I'm trying to schedule priming for 4:30 fuel explosion by 9:45. What? I will bring a new engine
That makes
starter video.
unless you know the code, none of that makes sense.
I have no idea. Some vegetable cream cheese.
Someone is pointing out that his tattoo may not have been permanent.
Right. Yeah. I was looking at it and it's way too dark for it to be a permanent tattoo. The guy's an old guy. It's not going to look like that unless it's fake. Toasted bagel with cream cheese, smoked salmon, and coffee at the library. Thank you. Okay. He's making breakfast orders. I thought he only ate beef jerky for breakfast.
Yeah, but do you ask for breakfast by email?
He might.
So, when you're rich, you
email.
might.
You
Rich
press a
people
button.
do rich people things, you know what I mean? But all this, just all of like one email about cream cheese or one email about jerky, like, wow, you're a weirdo. But like, it just seems to me there's something more going on when it's all put together like this.
Well, Although it's terrible, I still think that all of this is to keep us here looking at this stuff while
No,
the
well,
real
yeah,
things are
but
going
we
by.
should also do something, and certainly we should realize that it's the institutionalized, or as the Hopi would put it, I know Headless, you'll like this, the two-hearted, right? It's the individuals and the individuated versus institutions and the institutionalized, and this is evident of that, and trying to make one or another of these people innocent just because we don't have proof of exactly what they did. All these infer that they were doing sadistic ish together, like
Yeah. And they are pretty sadistic. Again, look at what he's saying here. I don't know any. They did a great job of closing most, at least for the Goyim. So he's already grouping them and telling people that he doesn't think that Goyim are worth it.
There's one point he's making fun of Bill Gates for wanting to help African or Asian people. No, he's making fun of Bill Gates for wanting to help people with his philanthropy. And he says, I don't know, it's some Catholic thing where they think all people are equal. All people
If Epstein actually believed that Bill Gates was trying to help someone, then he was extremely deluded.
Well,
Jeffrey helped him set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So he was actively involved in all of the charity work. So he should have known better that, all of this stuff was money laundering, because all of these major charities, the Clinton
And
Foundation.
eugenics. The polio vaccination in Africa, while he has captured law, if he sets the foot there, they're going to arrest him because of the thousands of children that he left paralyzed from his polio injections. He has the countries where he was enforcing his sustainable agriculture, right, to these small producers, where he took all the types of foods that they produce that they also eat and could sell to produce something they can't eat, and he's the sole buyer. So instead of promoting growth on those small communities, he just eradicated them, right? Because people didn't have what to
all
eat.
this is proof that he's working with people that he supposedly is in opposition with. He very well may have been partying with, or not that he's opposing necessarily people at large, but I'm saying like he's working with other sadists that people give credit.
This goes so high in the echelon. We have no chance whatsoever to go into what really was going on.
Well,
and horrors
no chance until it's one. That's
this is the stuff. This is the stuff that they want us to see.
Exactly.
Right? There's another 3 million files that were so horrendous that they couldn't possibly release them. Half of the tranche is not released because
it reminds me, how interrelated power play is in the world at large, and even local TV and broadly and so forth. That there's that clip of Trump when he's like, I just grab him by the la la la, and he's talking with that guy. You know who that guy was? He was first or second cousin of the Bush. Of our presidents 1 and 2. We had 2 of them president in our lifetimes, and he was with Mr. Bush, another Bush. That's how interrelated they are at every level.
Billy is the one that actually took all the heat for that, right? So Billy Bush is the one doing the interview, and Trump is spewing all this stuff out, and he actually gets canceled for it, and Trump becomes president. Now Billy Bush didn't say that shit. He was actually kind of shocked that Trump would say that, So
it sounded like a shock laugh. Like, what do I do? What do I say to that? I can only laugh.
But it's funny that would be the case, is that, you've got the people who are responding to these, insiders. Again, I think what Goyim is really referring to is the uninitiated.
Poor, and might as well be poor people too, right?
Right. Poor people, uninitiated people.
Jug the Goat says, look at pics of Tony Rodham Clinton. Is that Is that
I'll check that out.
We have to understand that at these levels, there are no borders, there are no countries.
No,
They are
that's
all a
that's
big family. They are
word.
all a big family.
That is the point. They do not see things in red and blue or black and white. They are all intermingled and
It's
related
us
and
and
working
them.
together. If you're not a billionaire, you are poor, and they have no
You
respect.
can be a billionaire and not be at all in this class. This
Yeah,
is
absolutely. But I'm just saying that that's one of the prerequisites. It would be presumable. You know,
at
you
all
got to
because you're already born with those, right? Or you are called to be in the lowest parts of it because this is a bloodline. This
Well,
is a huge,
there's another. It very, very, very well may be bloodline oriented, but I would point out he stated that he worked for the Rothschilds to Peter
Represented them
Thiel.
directly. Yeah.
He's
it's
talking
all a
to
big
Peter
brotherhood,
Thiel.
and
That's
they
what
all fight
there's
amongst
another
themselves for
relationship.
power.
He was basically a schlep for family lineage, if you will. But look what he's doing, and he says to Peter Thiel that he's oh hey I know you heard I work for the Rothschilds. I wanted to talk to you about, and now what is Peter Thiel doing? He's not doing a home business, let's just say, right?
Nope.
And none of these guys were doing anything that is remotely close to honest corporation. And
Let's see
Bannon,
Tony Rodham in the pictures.
Trump's another one of Trump's best friends, who was all tight with Epstein, and Nutlick, one of his administrative representatives right now, lived next door to him. Communicated with Epstein, hey, I'm in the Caribbean cruising around. I'm with my kids, and he listed their ages. Can we come by for lemonade? They all want to come by for lemonade. That's their thing when they went to the island. So Nutlick lied that he was Epstein, and then was bros with him to enough where he was bringing his kids by.
All the people who message Epstein about their kids always include their ages. Have you noticed that?
What the fuck is that, right? Yeah. That's just like, and this guy's coming on his boat. This is way post the charges, way post supposedly he got rid of his connections. And it comes out that he's visiting him with kids. Hey, I'm coming by with my kids. I hope it's okay. That would be like a normal thing to say. Not like, hey, I'm coming by with 6 kids and here are their ages. Like, what? What?
There's no Tony Rodham that I can find in the photos. They are redacting this stuff faster than anything you can imagine, because what I heard is that they are trying to scrub it so that other countries don't start their own investigation.
And that's been happening, right? And they've been totally deleting and then putting back, and then they keep on deleting things as they've put them out, for sure.
It's so ad hoc.
Yeah, right. Isn't that how the federal government works? You know best, having worked for him.
Well, that's the thing too. Again, all of this stuff has to be funneled through the right channels, and there aren't enough employees to go through 3 million files. So as soon as there's attention put on 1 or 2 things, in the background, they've got all these AIs compiling all of this data and then putting out warning flags. Again, going to this website is probably flagging me too.
I would bet that it is actually a more purposeful failure, and they are getting the information out there because the inclination to, share on the world's most diabolical rich people, I think, is within the DOJ. Even they're being ordered not to, and that's why some of the redactions could be redacted. if you heard about that, right? Right. So they've been. I think it would point to them doing it.
My point, Eden, is that even though this is all terrible, I think this Epstein was just producing his own version of what he knows or knew was happening in gigantic scale. Right?
I'm sure he was not the only one. I would suggest that he was pretty big. but I would say I also absolutely believe that there are numerous circles of such. Certain, you don't get much bigger than the people he was fucking with, right? I mean, so that's why I say he was pretty big.
Yeah, but the problem is the people that we see are far from being the top echelon. The top
Right.
echelon is the people you don't see, right? And
Right.
it is on those circles that this is happening. So how can you explain
It does
thousands and
not
thousands and
negate their
thousands
guilt.
and thousands of children missing,
I,
right?
I don't know that
All
I
over the
can.
world, right?
All
Where
I'm,
are
all
these
I'm
where are these
saying is
children going?
I'm not saying that deduced that. What I'm
I
saying
think he's
is
a drop in the ocean. He's just a guy that saw, oh, they are doing this, so
I'm
let
not
me create this
saying
version. I'm perverted enough, and I have
how does
a,
their innocence that you can't
Let
find
me
the kid
propose this.
and you
If
can't.
you have
and go-
billions of dollars, you can pay people to erase every trace of you from all of these databases, right? So all of these people they can't identify. I mean, we've got some of the best facial recognition software at our fingertips right now. All of these people that they can't identify, there's a reason for that. These
Well,
old
if you were one of the wealthiest people on the planet, such as potentially the Rothschilds and Putin, for instance, Putin is said to be the wealthiest, if not richest man on the planet. Wouldn't you want to tell people that, hey, the people you think are the wealthiest, there's even bigger people behind the scenes, and don't even look at me. Wouldn't you want to put that information out?
that's what
I'm
history
being
shows us.
devil's advocate. Yeah, I'm
That's
just saying like, they probably are really. We can trace who are the world's most diabolical and wealthy people. There, some of them are right in
look
front of our
look
eyes. You're
look
certainly
as
right. There are family names beyond the Rothschilds and Rockefellers
who
and so forth
who
are
who
hidden.
is playing
Some of them
who
are
is
right.
playing who is playing the chess with all these massive figure people that are billionaires that you know of? Who is playing chess with them, right? Remember, even in remote times like Saint Germain, who was telling Saint Germain how to put countries and kings against each other and how to bring information? Who was controlling all this? Who is above all of these people? Who has
But
the
the
power
thing we
enough to manipulate and know everything that is going on every single place?
I agree. Those are valuable questions, and beyond who we don't see in these information releases, whatever sort they are, it's valuable to ask. It also is also important to say that that doesn't negate their guilt when we do find the information
Sure,
on them.
because
None of this
everything can be
negates their guilt.
falsified. I still think there's a very big possibility that that Russian guy that died in the submarine with the best pilot in a completely stupid and ill done submarine for the effect that he was doing. Its very shape was completely against every single snow thing we know about how to create a machine that goes to those depths. uh, to me, all of that is can be very well forged. It's just someone that was elected to disappear from the face of the earth. It just chose to disappear. You go to his son, right? The son was partying and laughing. There was no grief on that family, not at all. And did anyone saw what happened to the money? No,
For
no
me,
one followed that
I
history.
mean,
No one. So that
I
guy
would.
just chose to disappear from the face of the earth. He just entered into a new stratosphere.
Not only do I question what was behind that, because any sense of physics pointed out that that thing only had so many dives in it. And so, I mean, I question who was behind that. But I also question who was behind bringing up the contrast of the son partying and not having any grief. Like, he may have had grief, like just 1 minute in someone's life. Like, you don't know what they're really going through necessarily.
What I'm saying is, while everybody was looking at this at awe and shock, he was photographed keeping his normal life.
I'm just saying this one
And that
minute.
normal life was partying. It's not that he was going to work or going to
I'm
school.
not
That
trying to
normal life was
defend
partying.
and that the putting out that idea is itself
I'm just
questionable.
using as an example. I'm not saying it's absolute. I'm just using it
Sure.
in a sign. It's just a
Nothing-
sign that increases the possibility. It's not an affirmation, right?
signal.
I think that there's lots of people
I
that
don't mean
either
to
are
just need to-
suicided or suicide themselves and disappear from the face of the planet in terms of representation, right? There is a chance that these people are going to some place, right, that they earn from some service or for whatever it is, that they can go and live completely anonymous, right? We know that this happens in several periods of history. There was this group, because it's all a matter of imitation. They all, even the billionaires, are imitating these top echelons in their behavior because that's what they see, right? So when you see that these communities, these islands, see, for instance, gangsters that reach a level of money that can go to a place in South America, this is hypothetical, of course, where they pay their entry and they live the rest of their lives in an island where they, or a piece of the country where they have all their needs fulfilled, because they don't need any more the money. They just give the money to the institution, and anything they want for the rest of their lives they have. But this is again another drop in the ocean. This is an imitation of what higher echelons keep on doing. So I think that if we look at the work at like David Icke, Michael, what's his name? Michael Tsarian. You look at the work of these people, and you see that the evidence that they found, that all we see is a screen smoke. That, for instance, I wouldn't easily
None of the
believe.
things that we're seeing in the Epstein files were meant to be seen. Right?
Sure.
So, I mean, there is a lot of smoke, but there also is a lot of information they did not.
I'm not trying
Do
to.
you want to know my theory
Go
on
on.
the whole thing? So what if it was all meant to be released and it was all meant to
Of course.
confuse? But here's the real reason why, is because this guy had so many connections within the United States government that the only way you can break the dollar, you can break the United States, is by getting everybody else not to accept the dollar. So this thing could have been a ticking time bomb from the beginning. And these releases are only going to bring down our status globally. Right. So
this is not limited to the United States, though. This is absolutely a network of international, non-United States related people as well. There are several government heads that have fallen already in Europe and
Ethan,
England.
imagine that you are a very rich and influential person in the world, and you have no idea what this fellow is doing on his island, right? No idea. And this fellow sends you an invitation and said, "Oh, join us in this group. I would like to invite you and come into this group." And he goes to the island and he's there. He sees nothing. He sees absolutely nothing. It's a normal reception where he has a good time, and then he goes away again, right? But this information exists, and this has things happened on that island. So that person, from that moment on, receives an email saying,
"It's important.
This is where you were. This is where you were, and this is what happens here."
No,
so
that
from
is
this point on, you are in our hand.
No one is doing that. In fact, I would say they're doing the opposite. They're not making it a total disgrace. They're making it a really investigated idea and even non-guilty type of things. But when they lie and then it's revealed that they were lying, then my deduction is that they did not want that to come out. Particularly Nutlick and Tesla, whatever his name is, also was claiming he never talked to anybody about it. He didn't. So-and-so invited me to his island, but I didn't go. No, he was asking, when can I come? And not only that, when's the wildest night or day to party at your island?
Let's go through the model. Let's go through the model of management.
What?
So the model of management, if we're going to say that this guy's a middle manager, he's working for the Rothschilds. Let's say the Rothschilds are working for these billionaires too. So the only way to go through these layers up to the people who have actually paid the money to be completely off of the grid is to go through these channels. Now, the only way that those people who have paid to get off of the grid completely to operate in the world is through these other channels.
Of course.
It will be.
You see what I'm saying? Now they've bottlenecked the entire sort of understanding of, and this guy makes an excellent point. Nutlick.
And he's the guy that has for everyone who doesn't know, whenever Trump makes an infantile joke, he's the first one to laugh exuberantly, as if it's funny in every meeting that he has. And he said, "Oh, I met the guy when I first moved in. He invited us over for tea." Well, he first moved in next door to the guy in Manhattan, next door in Manhattan of 6 million people.
Do you think that governments around the world are different from the global networks of media?
Well, I think that it's not monolithic like that. I don't think that the answer to that is not an absolute one way or another.
No, what I'm saying is the same way all of the media in the world, especially the first countries, are in the hand of 3 companies that might be connected to the same group on top of it, right? Because they acquired all the media in the last 30, 40 years. They bought every single media. They even changed countries' laws in order to be able to control that media. I saw that happen in Portugal. Even the regional newspapers...
They certainly tried Epstein
were forced by law
their corporations
to be incorporated in these corporations, right? And we all look at this as they are individual things. Like, I know that this company is owner of 2 channels and 7 newspapers and magazines in Portugal, the other. But all of those companies then belong to the same group, and that group also belongs to another group. It's a network, right? To me, governments are more or less like that. They are all independent to our eyes, but then they are associated with this group, and then they are associated with that's why you have the Trilateral Commission. That's why you have the Council for Foreign Relations, right?
Epstein founded and worked for the Trilateral Commission, by the way.
So that's why you have this what is called the country's most important, the I-7. It's not the I-7. How it's named?
G7.
G7. And G8, you have this is where they all go to the source of the messenger between these top groups and themselves. They meet those representatives that work on the other side of the fence, but are allowed to come to this side to make these receptions, to share information. And you know that they are deciding the future of the next 5-10 years in each one of these meetings. That's exactly what they're doing.
It used to be in the United States that they didn't want media corporations, especially, to be owned, as you point out, that they're owned now by one.
Well, you still live in a country that we only got that after EU, because our banks were independent. We produced our own money.
We don't have that anymore. Is my point.
No, what I'm meaning is the Federal Reserve sells every single money to the government. Well, in circulation.
Yes, and I just mean the media.
Give me control of the money. I don't care who makes the laws. So
what I'm saying is that the media was not controlled in a monopolization as it is now, as you point out. Certainly, I agree with that. My point about media not being monolithic is that journalists certainly are not in accordance with the way the institutions would have them do it. And that's why we have the Epstein files today, is because of journalists, many of them in the mainstream, that were constantly banging on this story when it was being refused by all these corporate executive fascists.
Until it was time to release it.
No, sir. It did not happen that way. It was constant battle. A lot of them were women. It was a constant battle for this to be released. It did not.
The same way that you have manifestations on the street done by civilians that are incentivized by small groups or single individuals in those manifestations, and then start the acts of destruction.
My point is not that there is not propagandized minds in the world. My point is that the reason that this information came out is because of journalists, many of them in the mainstream corporate schmuck class, constantly going at this story for decades. That's why this email list is from 2014.
Of course, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. But
That's not my
why
point
did
is
they?
that
Why did they
was
fail
not
for decades? Why did they fail for decades? Because
my
they.
well, but
It was
yeah, I
not
agree with
time.
you with that. I agree with you that there is corporate executive influence. My point is that this was not a plan until they had to do it. That was forced upon them by individuals. So
You believe that? You actually believe that the force of individuals could force them to
wait,
do anything?
would you refute the force of individual power? Is that what you're trying to do?
If we
Because
were all together, I would agree with you. But we are extremely
well,
divided.
you weren't involved in this work, but I would propose that many other individuals were. I think this did not happen to Nutlick's planning, who is in the highest seat of power in the administration. This was not his plan. Absolutely not. To Bill Gates being exposed for having a sexual disease and trying to drug his wife, this was not a plan. There may have been people to whom this was a plan, but this was made to happen by the insistence of journalists. I think we're not giving them credit.
Can we agree on one thing? Dominance leads to debauchery. Debauchery leads to degeneracy. Degeneracy leads to destruction. And so what we're seeing now is the sort of destruction of that cycle. He starts, I mean, the guy won the Powerball, for fuck's sake. They rigged it up to where this guy was put into these positions, and they gave him the funds and everything he needed to get his job done, which was to be the ultimate go-between, the delivery boy for all of this debaucherous shit, right? Because if you can manage the cycle of decline, you can keep people happy for long enough to where they can be useful to you.
Well, one thing that the United States is exceptionally good at is using whatever happens, exposure or otherwise, to their advantage. I'm sure there are powers that be, Ricardo, that wanted this to happen for different reasons, even to the point of degeneracy, as you point out.
And they fight amongst themselves. They fight amongst themselves on these top echelons.
Of course, I don't refute that. But I'm just saying that this was, in particular, if you look into the history of this, this was something that intelligence operatives in the state of Florida were perpetuating. And that's when all these reporters kept on going at it for years. I'm not saying it happens overnight. You're right, because of all these hostile institutional control systems that are intertwined, media and government. I totally agree with you. That is oligarchical collectivism, the intertwining of corporate, government, and media and religion. But this was made to come about by individuals pursuing it, including
because there would be honest people trying to look for this and reveal the truth, right? Of course, I don't doubt that they are the public heroes of this history, right? But what I'm saying is the liberation didn't happen because of this infantry units that were work hard and with much sacrifice of their lives. It happened because the war was suddenly declared and the floods of information were open for them to finally express
should
themselves.
Be kicked out of the White House for lying about his relationship with Epstein. In any other administration, he would be. And the reason he's not is because there are insistent zealots that continue to support him. If that 5% of those insistent zealots cracked also as a discipline,
this is an honest question for someone that is not an American.
He's just an example of it wasn't purposeful.
Sure. Tell me, what is exactly? I understand that so many people want Trump there and so many people want Trump out. My question is, what does that serve? Taking the man out of there, who is the hell is going to be placed there? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
That's not my point of pursuing the Epstein files necessarily. Anyone who is guilty as a sadist or evil should be.
They are all guilty.
Okay.
They are all guilty.
I'm not going after Trump solely. This is not I don't think this is anyone who's nonpartisan. That's not the pursuit. I'm just trying to say that as I started saying, whether it's international or national, they all are related. That is the hyper important lesson from this, that we not be partisan and just say, oh no, but he's with the GOP, he's okay. No, this is and Boys Town, this happened before in this country, where there were so many zealots in this country that international and national trafficking of children from Boys Town in Omaha, supposed and made out to be this innocent caretaker of troubled children, was exposed, and all these people just ignored it so much that it didn't
Ethan,
it got swept under
the
the carpet.
history of ONU that you call UN, of using what was a wonderful work by Diana to go to Africa and bring awareness of this and that and bring some help to these people, and actually creating schools and medical centers and all of that. They used this, by the help of Angelina, by the help of Bono, to start using their appearance to fill the goddamn planes with children and bring them somewhere. This to me is much more serious than Epstein. And there are much more evidence of this than there are of Epstein.
Well,
right?
It sounds to me the same. It just sounds to me the same seriousness. It sounds to me
no,
the exact
it's in a scale beyond anything that Epstein could have done on.
Are you sure? No, Epstein
absolutely.
Was
it's gigantic. It's absolutely gigantic. From a place that there is no surveys. We don't have the idea how many children were bought to families or taken from families, right, and placed in these planes. And of course, the pretty ones will be for sex use, and the other ones are going to be for blood, for organs, for this, for that. It's an atrocity beyond anything. Right, but we are all focused on this guy that is rich and had an island where many people that are famous go and party and commit atrocities.
I would say that the lesson from this is that it is happening broadly, widely, in multiple
everywhere.
states.
This doesn't stop anything.
All be brought down, no matter what their names are. People should be up in arms about this. I don't think there's a lot of this that institutions are going to use to their ends after it's released, but I don't think they wanted this to come out. Again, many individuals that are super powerful can be examples that they did.
Tell me, in your country, you have many stations that have a wide audience, right? In the millions and millions of people watching that channel,
it's not specific, it's white.
Because that channel promotes their political party or criticize the one that they don't like, right? Tell me, is there a massive TV channel that only promotes the people, no matter what the party is?
Well,
the people.
I don't know. Many people would have different stories for you on that. But I mean,
I seriously doubt that there exists a TV channel that attacks both parties, attacks everything, and only defends the public.
No, but there.
Why? Because they are all controlled. It's to divide the people. It's to feed people against each other.
No, well, if they very well may be, but they are.
Are the people working on those channels evil? They aren't evil. They are following their own beliefs.
They're just stupid. They're just dumb fucks. Yeah.
Look, but they are following what they believe, right? The same way that some ones are democratic and others are Republican and others are communists and so on.
Sometimes
they have a belief.
They actually believe what they're saying.
I've got a good example.
Look,
when
let me just say this, Headless. When the chemtrails were undeniable in Portugal, I went to several newspapers with images, with data.
About that, yeah.
Right? They didn't laugh at me.
Oh.
They didn't laugh at me. They said to me, gave me the exact same answer. I cannot publish this.
No.
It's not laughable. Some of them even knew what I was talking about. Others was news and said, "Oh, this is very weird." But they all came back to me either by email or personally saying, "I'm sorry, but I cannot publish this data." So it's not a matter of you being honest. It's a matter of what you can do or you cannot do to keep your job. The same way academics cannot discuss certain things because they will be removed from that position on the university, and so on and so forth. This is the same system applied to every single sphere of control and information. It's the same thing everywhere.
All the good cops have already quit.
I believe there are many cops that believe in what they're
mentioned,
doing and trying to be helpful. I don't doubt
someone
that.
just mentioned Peter Thiel, and he's in stupid power position right now, money and politics, obviously, and tech. But check this out. He was exposed for being a homosexual by individuals and I think a journalist. He then used that information to his benefit. He was hiding the fact that he was a homosexual for
Or you
years
couldn't
until
say
he
it and you find someone that will leak
no,
the
but
information.
my
So that
point, no. Wait. Let me be clear. My point is not to be against anything sexual. My point
I
is
know.
that they will use
Everything.
information that is brought about them than in a negative light. They always try to do that. So the power of that shows the power of journalists, as I would like to say, and to your point, the power of institutions on how they flip it and how they control it. I don't disagree.
Yeah,
They don't have to hide if nobody prints what they're doing.
exactly.
Well, that's
That's
what
why
they're trying.
even the regional newspapers, by law, had to be absorbed by these big companies. And from that point on, they have to send every single newspaper on digital format to this source that will analyze that and say, you can print this, you can't print that. You are the owner of the goddamn newspaper and you can't print what you want, because you have to send the newspaper to some place by email. They'll check it and they send it back redacted to you. They say, oh, it's fine, or you can't print this. Right? And occasionally they have the right to say, I want you to make a big deal of this, print this story. Right?
Someone, I forget who it was, brought this up. I think it was just in like a discussion online about the Epstein. I think it's a valid question. What
It's
are
true.
the social and psychic implications of this? For us, we're older. We've been more experienced in this type of realm and the world, I presume, and can handle like the whole idea of every institution that we might have trusted before. Now we don't trust. What are the implications of this for the normies on the come up that are young people trying to do their thing? Like, this is like a rug pulling out from you. Like, wow, the whole world is just full of a bunch of sadists, even though you don't even vocalize it like that. You just have this feeling, this implication of like, wow, everyone is diabolical. You could go a bunch of ways rather with that, but like some people might completely drop out and some people might say, oh, I'm just going to be like that.
How many good people are working, and for how long, on this disclosure project of UFOs, and now they have another name that I can't remember, right? We've been here, there's going to be disclosure for 40 years. Is there anything new on that? Nothing. And still people keep believing it's this year because they release this little drop of information that becomes highly explosive. It's this year. It's this year. They're doing it for 40 years.
I think you're right.
They can do the same for Epstein files for 40 years more.
Check this out, though. That is more exemplary, not of the politics, but of our psyche. Look how beaten down we are. Then these Epstein files didn't have to come out. The facts, historical and political and present news and so forth, was already out there to where any educated human being can put it together. We didn't need the Epstein files. You just need known history says what's up. Known news says what's up. So to your point, you're right. But I think it's how apathetic have we become that we'll let people steamroll of us like this for generations, and they're working together, making billions in the international institutions such as the Trilateral Commission and other Rothschild-sourced institutions all over the world. They're working together to keep us down and been doing so. That's how apathetic we are, that we're like,
Well, I think there is something to be said about money here. So we don't give money enough credit for its mind control potential. When I said all the good cops have quit, let's universalize that.
Is it money or the necessity to have it?
Well, right.
If we have the resources, if we have our resources all straightened out, it's not. But until then, it is.
it's the idea that whoever prints the money controls the world. And if you say the good cops have quit, let's universalize that to all the whistleblowers, right? So all the whistleblowers working within these institutions have to quit and then do it independently. And that's what a lot of these people have done is they've quit, they've done it independently, and now there's no other cops to sort of fill in the back to actually make this stuff happen. How do we detach from a system where the money is printed up by the worst people imaginable? That's really where we get going,
without
because we want to
control from the population, any at all.
We want to cooperate. We want to make things better, but if we don't have the control over the printer, what are we doing here? So maybe if the good people inside of the institutions that know how this stuff works don't figure out a way to make things easier on using alternative methods to create new institutions, how are we going to get that done?
I have a great quote that backs that up, and it's a quote that we're all familiar with, the encapsulated version, but the broader quote is even more powerful. Lord Acton, I cannot accept your canon that we are to judge Pope and King unlike other men, with a favorable presumption that they did no wrong. If there is any presumption, it is the other way, against holders of power, increasing as the power increases. Historic responsibility has to make up for the want of legal responsibility. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when you super add the tendency or the certainty of corruption by authority. There is no worse heresy than that the office sanctifies the holder of it.
And yet Voltaire says the only way to beat the system is to survive it.
It would appear so, until all of a sudden everything flips, right? Like one day in 1984, they're fighting East Asia instead of Oceania, right? So like all of a sudden power flips. And I think when it gets to the point that there's enough people, they have to battle. It's been demonstrated.
Think about this. We know that cataclysms are cyclic. We also know that we have been living in an intermediate period that is way beyond the time should have ended. The sun has been extremely kind to us. There have been no major catastrophes, no impacts except that from Tunguska. Well, curious enough, someone is. And so my point is, if you knew that something is going to happen and you have a time frame that is not precise, but it's more or less around the time it's expected by the best experts that the world has never seen, can tell you that will happen, what will you do? You need to reduce the population. You need to control the monetary system and try to unify it as much as possible. Right? You need to create infrastructures in order to safeguard those that are in real power and the minions that are below them, that are those in control that we can see. Right? And you need to create ways to make sure there is enough survivors in order you to continue to have your slaves without shackles, in order for you to rebuild and recreate society. And this time you try to do it once again by the best of your ability. Right? So if you knew all of this, you can look at the world today and to the world of the last 10, 15 years and see these people are accelerating the processes in order to reach this exact objective. This is all speculation. Something might not happen, but it is funny enough. We are all trying to figure out what will happen when the poles shift, if it has any impact, if it doesn't. The fact that it is going to happen around 2030. More than, we also have this supposed huge object that might cross near enough the Earth to cause some perturbations. They might also cause some eruption from the sun and create the same thing that happened on the Younger Dryas, this time without the ice. So,
Isn't it interesting that
if
the
you know all of this,
remote-
you don't care about population. You don't care about the population because they're
Right,
going to
you
die
know.
anyway.
You know that if you have that type of idea in your head, you could absolutely roll with that and think that it's moral. I agree. And isn't it interesting that the remote viewers, several of them anyway, talk about how there's going to be some form of natural disasters through and up to 40, 45 or something, through 30 to 45.
Sure. And why did they? Do you think it was protesters that destroyed the Guidestones, the Georgia Guidestones? I don't. I think
Was it
they
protest?
destroyed it themselves.
Yeah, no, it was a contractor that did it. So
Why?
I don't
Because
think
the time has come for that plan to come into place.
it was.
That's
So
why
that-
it was
That's
destroyed.
very possible. It's very possible. I'm just saying
The guy
big-
with the bomb in his trunk was never caught, right? That guy
Of course
was
he
the one who destroyed it, right?
And if someone was
Oh,
caught,
you know-
the guy.
Someone did.
yeah, there was a guy who backed his car up to the thing, put a bomb in his car, and blew the thing up,
Okay,
and
I
they
thought it
never
was-
caught the guy.
Oh,
Give me a
right,
break.
right. So
There are cops that were
so-
monitoring that place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had cameras all over
So
the
much
site, and you're
attention
telling me
was
they
on it.
didn't catch him?
one time for some reason, and then the bomb was set off, but it didn't really do any damage, and then they had it torn down. Right?
No, it
Right.
did some damage,
They
but
did,
they
yeah.
demolished the rest.
I think it was superficial, right? It wasn't like crumbling.
No, they cracked one of the things
Yeah,
doing
they,
it.
broke,
But
they broke one of the stones or two, and the rest were taken out. But notice this: there are some rumors that the people that created the Georgia Guidestones were not in league with the sames that are going to push that plan if it has to be pushed forward.
Sure. Very
Okay.
possible.
And so there has been conflicts under the surface between these groups and those that created that group that created those Guidestones that was somehow trying to tell what's going on, right? They are in the system, but they were trying subterfugely saying it's like a symbol of power, but at the same time was serving like being on the two sides, being a two-side spy. How do you call it? It has a name when you're a spy to both sides.
double agent.
Double agent, right? And they finally demolish it. And again, because I think it was time to bring that into action. That plan was in full motion, right? Because they
Well,
don't
there is-
know. They don't know if something is going to happen or not. But anyhow, either a cataclysm happens or not, they have to destroy this to create the new unified system. They want this new system in power, this new group that is taking power of other groups and destroying other groups by creating public awareness to their activities and so on and so forth. They want to have total domination after if something happens. And if it don't, let's just destroy, because it's not just the poor that are becoming more poor. Even money from the rich was taken, money from billionaires that was destroyed and scattered. They are eliminating people that this new group that is trying to gain control over the others in these high echelons are fighting for the control of the new world, for the one coin, for the one government, for this new world order that they didn't achieve yet because they keep fighting one another, because they all want to have on top and not just a piece of the pie.
They're not fighting each other enough. If we can get them to fight each other harder, I think we'll be in a good position. Ready? Let's watch the
Georgia
explosion.
Guidestones in Albert County blew up.
Phew!
This is surveillance video sent by the GBI from just after 4 o'clock this morning. Video also shows what appears to be a silver or gray car speeding away from the scene. Right now, local, state, and federal agencies are working to determine who's behind that explosion.
No, they're not.
The attraction was unveiled in 1980 and has drawn many people over the years. The man whose company maintains the site says vandalism has happened before, but never like this.
So, do you guys believe that they let this guy get away, or that they, did it?
Actually, I had to
themselves?
install
it's going to
cameras
happen.
several years ago after the vandalism got so bad. But, it does break my heart. If you don't like the
Yeah,
message that was
poor
written on them,
you.
that's understandable. That's your prerogative. But, there's no reason to take it away from other people that might.
that might
I will
Crews
love
point out
demolished
it
the
very
remaining
it,
stones over safety concerns. If you know any
it could have been as simple as like the locals didn't like people coming around, and so they just like let whoever did that, like, yeah, or they even did it themselves and like man investigating it.
Of course, that
There
if you
were
look at mass
there
Oh,
were
shootings,
wait, real quick. Guess who made supposedly, possibly the Georgia Guidestones? R.C. Christian.
Yeah.
Was he a Rosicrucian? Was this a Rosicrucianism kind of thing? R.C. Christian?
Yeah, it's a symbol, but I think what is going on here is they timed it out perfectly. There are cops on that site 24 hours a day monitoring. They've put up the cameras, right? And anybody going there is cataloged. They track their plates and stuff. This is what I've heard from people who have been at the site who have seen these cops, and they know that because as soon as they pull up, here comes the unmarked police car right behind them. So they had this thing on lock, and you're telling me they just let this guy get away? Give me a break. They
look,
did it all.
I'm not saying that every single mass shooting
Yeah, they were probably tired of working and did it themselves.
was someone
That would be
controlled
an interesting angle.
by some operation. There are some crazy people that will grab a gun and do terrible things, but most of them, when you look back to their record, they have all been into mental institutions. They all have been subject to tests in new types of drugs. They all had some kind of trauma or came out of some institution. All of them. There are very few exceptions, and those are the exceptions that obviously someone will do such things, right? It's like in Islam. If you have Americans bombing your city, or Russians, or French or English, it's very easy to grab those orphans and create them a profound hate for those that destroyed his life, that killed his parents and his family. It's very easy to recruit these people. It's the same thing in another level here, when we are presenting things that enrage us by what happens and keep dividing us instead of uniting us into a truth, right? It's all a system to divide our opinions, to divide our direction, to divide our votes.
Well, what's also interesting is that the angle they chose to show on the news was from behind the sculpture. Now, if you see this light right here, this is where they have another camera, and they've got another one over here, and they've got
And
another
where
one
they
over
can see
here,
the cars clearly.
where they could see the car moving. Again, they didn't show the car, but they said, we saw the car, of course, because you've got camera angles all over the place. This is the one they chose to show, which has absolutely nothing to do with the actual bombing. Like they showed you
It
the
goes-
back end bombing.
It goes to on the Occult Rejects. We've had recently several Rosicrucians on talking about essentially. Ronnie Pontiac put it best, I thought, that they actually are more, even though there's argument whether there is such a hardcore Rosicrucian group at the time or it was a joke. But the point of that, I think, being that they were, as Ronnie Pontiac put it, horizontal in the distribution of information rather than hierarchical. And
Right.
being that this place was made by R.C. Christian, Rosicrucian Christian, it sounds to me, and it would back up your point, Ricardo, of it possibly being made by people that wanted to expose this information. Because if you wanted to expose it, you wouldn't say, "Yo, they're gonna kill everybody of about 500 million of us." You would say,
Expose in the sense that it still happened.
plan
It will
is-
still happen, but
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying, to your point about them trying to expose it, that the way to do so would not be, here's the warning, because
Sure.
that would be attacked and belittled and destroyed immediately. You would put it as they put it, as not even a warning. They're just like objective kind of thing. You know?
sure. But not behind, but beside this monument, there is a document like this thick with all the information that is condensed in few words on the monument. They first did a heavy
In the
study.
UN?
Yeah, they first did a heavy study of what would be required to have sustainability after the catastrophe. And that's a report. And it's from that report that they created the guidestones.
But let's
From the
bug out on
result of
that for
that
a second.
report.
I would say that is 100%
Mountain.
rich person Epstein crew lie. If they were to live like billionaires, yeah, you need about maybe 5 million. But if you live like a normal human being, obviously the earth can sustain billions of people.
What if the entire Rosicrucian establishment, they're agents of goodwill, right? So if you go through their documents, they always talk about goodwill. But what does goodwill actually produce in
Or
reality?
means to them.
Yeah, it doesn't really produce much. But you've got the agents.
Beef jerky.
You've got the agents of goodwill going out there as your missionaries, right? The missionaries of goodwill. These are the guys who go out there who are the best selling this message, integrating these other people. It's weaponized love, right? And if you go through Ronnie Pontiac's stuff, yeah, he's very genuine about his goodwill. But, who's behind it? Who's propping it up? Do we really know? Do we know all of these people involved? So, yeah, if you look at the agents of goodwill, these are the guys who set up the UN meditation room, right? Agents of goodwill. And they believe that by integrating this sort of process, you not only have, top cover, because these people are integrated into the government as these agents of goodwill and Unitarianism, right? Unitarianism. Everybody can get together and cooperate and have a good time. And, we could see that in the Denver airport as well. It's like, we actually want the opposite of what we're showing you in these murals and stuff like that. We're the agents of goodwill, but really, are they fully aware of the agendas that they're pushing?
It is that complicated. I think that there are those aspects to it. It's a great question. I think that does happen.
Yeah, and why is exactly on Denver Airport there is a massive, massive military underground base, right?
Well, the agents of goodwill are going to tell you because they probably don't know themselves.
Exactly. But the thing is, it's exactly on the point where they show you this process of destruction and chaos, right? Where they might be emerging back. So that's the history for them. If that survives, there's the history of what happened. That is not different from the Georgia Guidestone. So thank you for bringing that up. It's not different at all. It's the same thing. It's just a different perspective over the same event, right?
So you've got the agents of goodwill in the front and Jeffrey Epstein in the back, right? They're driving the car and Epstein's right there to get out and go where he needs to go.
You always, if you are an element of power, you need to have someone that is the public face, be it for showing goodwill or being to do nefarious things. You need to have that face, and that face usually is the guy that has fun. Right. The problem is sometimes that guy has too much fun, or he doesn't know he's completely expendable because he thinks he has so much power and so much influence that he forgets that he's just food like everybody else, right? And
right.
These people are dispendable. They are dispendable, no matter how high, no matter if they are a president of a country, doesn't matter if they are Putin or a king. They are all.
And we should treat them like that. We should treat them like that because they treat each other like that. We should make them expendable as leadership and authority over us, because
when you have institutionalization, everybody becomes expendable, right? It's the institution that's primary. Who cares who's running it as long as the institution survives?
Exactly, to the point where the institution can even be the asset, not a person at all. It's the asset that is in control, and who is in control of that asset is the one who's going to dictate the laws from the ladder down, right? But is the institution itself, the organization, the headquarters, the seat of the knowledge, that is not someone that is in true control, that has it's the actual power resides. It's not on the individual. The individual can take command of that, but is dispendable. It can be removed and another person goes there. What matters is the foundation of that institution, is the guidelines, the rules that he follows. that creates all these webs of control all over the world, dictates who starves and who not, and who may become because if you're not a footballer, because I don't see it in much other places than, and be it American football or baseball or soccer, there's not many ways for you to become a billionaire with huge influence out of nothing. Because those are the few that I don't see are selected for that. For instance, you look at Ronaldo. Ronaldo is a fucking idiot. He's a moron. He's a retarded. That was his only smartness was to recognize that he was retarded. And so he contracted people to taught him languages, to taught him about the history, to teach him how to behave. Instead of him placing his money, he looked for people that can actually do investments and create a huge empire for himself with people that actually know how to rule this kind of money. And that's why he's able to live the life that he lives and have the influence that he is. So he can be used by these top organizations as a face of promotion without him never knowing what is the real intention that they are doing and what they are really promoting by using him as a face. And when I talk him, I talk about many others, right? If you look at Beckham, for instance, he and his wife were brave or intelligent enough not only to be just faces, but to go into these institutions and to share a little bit of that power and whatever it is that they do in these places, right? It depends a lot, but you can still be a billionaire and have no impact whatsoever. It has no. It was yourself that put yourself there. It was your effort. It was your ability, right? Instead of everything else, you have to be selected from school. They look at you, or either you belong to a certain family and they guide you and they put you into this fraternity, and then you go to this cult, and so on and so forward, and you become initiated and enslaved to that system itself, but you gain power and you're placed in positions of power and money. So I don't know where I was going with this. I'm just
Well, I think 2 hours and 30
yeah,
minutes.
it's more than
It's got to be a record.
yeah.
So let's close it up there. This has been a great one. Thank you guys for joining us. Remember, like and share the show. Hit that bell, and we
Absolutely.
will be back again. So thank you guys for joining us.
Very fun farewell. Thank you.
Peace.
Just remember, are you an agent of goodwill for somebody you don't really like?
Yeah.
Maybe keep that in mind. All right, guys. See you later.
Good.